we'll start with some introductions. My name is Eric Weiser. I am the interim director of the Oregon AHEC, I also facilitate for the Oregon ECHO network. So I do a couple ECHO facilitations, diabetes and COVID and preceptor development, and so I'll be your host today. Our overall agenda looks like this. We're going to I'm going to finish introductions, and we're going to have a didactic on some retention best practices from Debbie Hawkins from Florida, and hopefully we'll have some time for some questions and answers there for a couple minutes before Carlos is going to do our case presentation. And if you haven't joined an ECHO before, ECHO was developed by University of New Mexico about 15 years ago by Dr. Aurora, who's a hepatologist. And what he was noticing was that there was a 9-month wait period to get people into his clinic for hepatitis C treatment. And he developed this ECHO process so that he could train people in remote areas in New Mexico how to manage hepatitis C locally. And through this process of training local primary care on how to do hepatitis C, his wait list for his clinic went from 9 months to a couple of weeks, as well as he saw better care. And so this ECHO model has been adapted from hepatitis C to all sorts of topics, including education. And it's really exciting for me to bring this to you today. With that, let me introduce our team. So Laura, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Laura Wallace. I am on the subcommittee for this, but I also am leading the subcommittee for the National AHEC Scholars Collaboration. So I'll be reporting this and adding it to our list of resources for AHEC Scholars coordinators in AHEC centers across the country.
And Glinda?
Good morning or good afternoon. I'm a part of this committee as well as the Education Committee at large, and both of the folks that are presenting are a part of our Southeast Learning Collaborative. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. And is Judith on the call? I don't see her. Debbie, how about introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Debbie Hawkins, and I'm Associate Director at the University of Florida, and I'm also statewide administrator of our statewide AHEC program.
Thank you. And Carlos?
Hi, I'm Carlos Marin. I am Assistant Dean for Community Engagement in College of Medicine, and also Program Director for the University of Kentucky AHECs.
Perfect, thanks. Let me just introduce ECHO, a little bit, some ground rules for it. Some things that if you can do, just remember to keep your mic when you're not speaking, and keep your video on if you can. The big thing with ECHO is that it's an all teach, all learn model. So we're here, even though I'm facilitating and Debbie and Carlos are presenting, we really want to learn from everybody, which I think is what makes the ECHO model special. We want to share your ideas and your feedback, and at the end we'll have a post-session survey, and I'll drop that into the link then too. So if you could click on that, that'll help us develop future sessions for everybody and give us feedback on how we're doing. So we're gonna have Debbie talk about some of the best practices that she learned, and then Carlos is gonna give us a brief presentation on some of the pitfalls he's encountered, and then we're all gonna hopefully have a conversation around some of the maybe if we've had similar successes or challenges too, so that we all can share together. So that's what it'll look like. I'm going to be advancing the slides for everybody. Sometimes with the Zoom, there's a slight delay, so I'll do the best I can. And once in a while, after a slight delay, I get a little antsy and might jump too ahead, but I'll do my best to keep on track. With that, I want to introduce and turn it over to Debbie.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about some of our experiences in Florida. I will say that I am in the program office, and what I'm sharing with you today are some tips and things that we learned along the way as our centers have worked through the implementation of the Scholar Program. Go ahead. Okay, so some of you may or may not know that Florida at one time had 4 AHEC programs. We can go ahead and advance. We had 4 AHEC programs in our state, and during the last grant cycle, submit one grant part of to form the Florida statewide AHEC consortium. So we're comprised of the University of Florida, which is the top part of the state, the University of South Florida, Nova Southeastern University, which is a private university, and the University of Miami to the south, which is also a private university. We do have one other university that we affiliate closely with, and that's Florida State AHEC, but they're not a federally funded AHEC. So we collaborate on other contracts, but not on the federal. So you can see that we have a varied mix of universities that are a part of our consortium. The University of Florida, University of South Florida, they're public, and then we also collaborate with private universities. We kept our regional AHEC model through our integration, so that although we have 10 centers, each of the program offices maintains their relationship with their centers, and they're all 501(c)(3)s. We're also state supported. For years, we were funded to do the typical training activities and CE and health careers. Well, about 10, 15 years ago, our state funding, we had to switch vehicles on that, and we became a part of the Florida Department of Health Tobacco-Free Florida Tobacco Cessation Campaign. Part of that initiative, we provide group cessation classes throughout the state, and we're funded at about $13 million for that endeavor. And the key thing about that is that it allows us to maintain our training relationships with our academic universities, and it allowed us to continue to provide CE, although it's within the rubric of the framework of tobacco cessation counseling and training. Next slide. We have a very unique model in Florida. We do a lot of collaboration, and we try to communicate a lot about what's going on with our program. We have, with this new grant and with all of us coming together, we formed a series of work groups around recruitment, evaluation, logistics of just rolling out the Scholar Program and our curriculum development. We have leadership meetings with the program directors and the center directors. Our course managers meet monthly, and then we meet monthly as a full group and discuss issues. So every week we've got a meeting going on, sharing information and communicating. And I think the key thing about our success is that we've always brought in our centers into the process, and they have also had a role in shaping and developing our program. We share resources. We use Google Classroom as our main didactic platform, which allows all the universities and individuals to participate in our didactic component without having to be credentialed through one university. We do have IPE training events that are open statewide. So there's a lot of collaboration and sharing of resources that takes place. We have a very decentralized AHEC center model. Our centers are responsible for the recruitment and the selection of AHEC scholars, and they're required to have at a minimum 15 scholars per cohort. Each center manages their own AHEC scholar program within our framework, and they coordinate with their academic partners, and they're responsible for finding and developing experiential learning activities in their area. Again, we are required because we have 10 centers, we're required to have a minimum of 150 scholars each year. We decided early on that we would only accept health profession students that were a part of a 2-year program, and that either a 2-year or 4-year degree program, graduate program, or one of the professional programs. We decided to stay away from certificate programs or programs that only lasted 1 year. We have a defined list of eligible disciplines that we are willing to accept. That includes medical and dental students. We recruit from universities and colleges statewide. So whether they're in our network or not, we will reach out to them and to see if their students are interested. Just to give you a little bit of a data of what's taking place with us, the first year we received 322 applications for 150 slots. We had selected about 150 scholars during the first cohort, and we made it through the end of cohort 1 with 112 scholars. Now, the 112 that we have, that was really significantly impacted by a major hurricane that hit the Panhandle area, and we had about 8 to 10 scholars that dropped out because they were a part of Hurricane Michael and Hurricane Maria. So we had more attrition that first year, and also the first year was really a tough year in terms of starting the scholar program, and I'm quite sure you all experienced the same as well. So we were able to retain about 72% of our scholars the first year. We learned a lot of lessons going into the second cohort. The next year, we received just about the same number of applications. We selected more scholars to help out with attrition. And we're going into this last quarter with 136 scholars. So so far we've been able to retain 81%. And so I've got my fingers crossed, can we make it over the finish line? Our third cohort, we just started with them in the last fall. We had 389 applications. What I've also found out that we had almost 500 students, I guess another 150 more students who came to the application but didn't finish it. But those are the ones that actually completed the application, was like 389. We selected 198 scholars for that cohort 3, and so far we've only had 4 to withdraw from the program. So I'm expecting a little bit more attrition going on, but hopefully not too much more. Next slide. So we've learned some things along the way, and I'd like to share a few things with you about that. Next slide. We learned that the critical piece is that retention starts with recruitment. The application process is critical to selecting the right scholar for your program. What we do in Florida, and it's very important, is that we included essays in our application process. That gives us a little bit of insight as to what are the students' priorities, how interested they are in working with the underserved and in primary care. We also check we ask them about their prior AHEC experiences. And a lot of times they are a part of programs, but do not realize that they're actually AHEC programs. So we look for that as well. And that's a good indication that they share similar values as the program does. We also ask them about any awards or certificates or honors that they've received. And then I look at it and peek at it a little bit and thinking that, is the student already overextended? Because if you get a student that's involved in a lot, has a lot of activities, they may not be the right type of student for this particular program. The selection process is critical. That we felt it was very important that you interview potential scholars before you actually make them an offer. One of our AHEC centers, I believe it was Swanee River, actually takes a process where they schedule slots. They'll send the student an email saying we're interested in talking with you more about becoming an AHEC scholar. Would you sign up for one of these interview slots to meet with our staff. That puts the onus kind of back on the student. Are you really interested in being a scholar? Then you'll sign up for the appointment. So if they don't bother to come back and get an appointment, then we know that the student wasn't really committed to the process. So that helps weed out more. So only the ones that are willing to take the initiative to sign up for their interview. And also during the interview allows the student to ask questions about the program and whether or not this is a good fit for them and this part of their academic career. Next slide. We also learned that the curriculum is so critical of what you're offering the student. We made it, I call it AHEC centric, but it focuses around the things that are critical to the AHEC experience. We focus on developing skills, identifying resources and tools for the scholar that they can take with them as they go into their professional career. So we definitely take a co-curricular approach. We do not have faculty are not involved in developing the curriculum because we really wanted to stay away from what their program was offering, but focus on developing skills that they can take with them into the workplace. We want them to be collaboration ready. We do a lot of team-based activities where the students are able to learn the roles and responsibilities of other disciplines. One of our AHECs, Big Bend AHEC, developed this really innovative approach to doing IPE over Zoom, and they have time where they can have like a learning session, and then they get together in breakout groups and they work on an assignment together, and it's interdisciplinary when they work in their breakout groups, and they really, really enjoy opportunities to work together, especially getting to know what other disciplines have to offer. Pre-pandemic, we were community-based focused. The scholars were out in the community, being involved in learning about underserved and vulnerable populations and getting to know people in the community, and they really enjoyed that. We also try to give them learning tasks that are fun as well. We had them to do a photo voice project of their community. With AHEC, we try to encourage our centers to have the scholars assigned to a geographic area, and so they're able to go out and explore what that community is about. So that was a fun project, but during the pandemic, we weren't able to send them out to do that particular task. We go ahead. Also, what we've learned is to intervene early with struggling scholars. We try to work with them because we know that their primary goal is to finish their academic program. So what we try to be flexible, we do have deadlines and benchmarks set up, and we will extend deadlines to help. Our year typically runs through September, October through May, and allows us to have our data ready for our annual performance report. But if it's necessary, we allow the students, some of the scholars that have fallen behind, that window between June and August 31st to catch up with some of their assignments and to be back on track by the second year. Sometimes scholars are saying, I need to take a time out, I need to put the scholar program on hold for a couple of months. I'll be back with you, but I gotta get past this. We also help them develop plans for finishing their assignments. Sometimes they're getting behind on their experiential learning, so we might give them, here's the pathway of how you can get caught up with your hours. There are X number of events that are coming up in your area. If you do this online event, you're good to go. So we help them come up with a plan on how they can finish. We also help with some scholars if they are having severe difficulties. We try to help them find resources in the community or on campus that can help them through their difficult time. Next slide. And I would really recommend that you use your data. You've got a lot of information on your scholars. I call them AHEC Scholar Analytics. You look at your scholar data for patterns. Which disciplines are dropping out the most? Are students of color dropping out more frequently? Are students from disadvantaged backgrounds dropping out? What time of the year are they, or a portion of the curriculum, are the scholars departing. This will give you some indication as to what professions, where you need to make adjustments in your program. We found out, I'm learning that when I look at the data, that our RN or LPN to RN, our LPN students are having some difficulties. And also with our RN to BSN students, sometimes we have more attrition with that group. We're also tracking whether or not our minority students, or students of color, are they having difficulties as well? Are the attrition rates higher for that population? And what we'll start to do is looking at building additional supports in for students. If we can pinpoint it's the group of students at this particular university, they're having some difficulty and making it to the end of the scholar program. What can we do in terms of adding things into our program that gives them additional support so that they're able to finish? Because we really, one of the goals of the scholar program was to increase minority participation. So we're really watching that closely to see, is that something that we need to correct or modify in our program. And also the curriculum, that's a good indication for me as I was still developing the curriculum. Is there a point where it gets too difficult for them? Is it too much work? And as you can see, we have a wide range of health profession disciplines that are involved in our program. For some of our students that are at the community college, well, is that particular curriculum section or module that we're working on, is that too much for them? Also, I tend to do a lot of detail and I call it Debbie-sizing it. Maybe I've made that portion of the curriculum too difficult. Is it too much work? And so I've had to get the feedback from the field and say, pare down social determinants of health a little bit. It's a bit much. So I've made those adjustments so we don't lose students at that point, hopefully. Okay, new slide. Stipends, they're very important. It's not that we're trying to pay the scholar, and it's more of a reward or an appreciation for them for being in our scholar program, especially that first year group of scholars. I just appreciate the 112 that hung in with us. It was a bumpy year. I'm quite sure your first year was bumpy as well. Florida, we offer our students a $500 scholarship stipend each year. So they get a total of $1,000 for both years. But that is a two-edged sword for me. I see that at times it does help, but then there are times when we have to step back and look at a student's application. Is the stipend the student's primary motivation for becoming an AHEC scholar? And because we have the essays, they do sometimes relate to us, I hope I get this scholarship. That's another key word. I go, uh-oh, I really need this money so that I can pay the rent in the month of March, or that my kids will be able to go to start daycare, at the end of the year. And that sometimes it's kind of hard to read those essays and to hear that they have high financial needs. And I really appreciate the Louisiana AHEC for mentioning to me, like, when you get those essays, start to refer those students to their community services or things that can help them with the financial piece of that. But yes, the stipends are good on one hand. On the other hand, they can be the student's primary motivation. And then it becomes, how much does that $500 at the end of the year, does it really mean to me? Or I found another way, I really don't need the 500, so I'm just going to drop this AHEC scholar piece. So that's another thing. Just be careful with it, but it does help. Okay, next slide. Another key thing is to provide professional development opportunities, and that was something that I felt very passionate about with the scholar program, because I wanted the scholars to leave their academic program and the scholar program with something that they could put on their resume in terms of building them and helping them to be ready to go into the workforce and be a valuable commodity to that organization that they do join. We have embedded the Institute of Healthcare Improvement Certificate of Quality Improvement and patient safety into our curriculum under practice transformation. So whenever the student completes that module, they'll get that certificate from IHI. And I think in a healthcare setting, and especially in the hospital environment, that IHI certificate does go a long way in terms of demonstrating that that person is serious about patient safety and quality improvement. But we had a lot of problems with IHI, so I don't know if anybody was using them this year, but I think we worked through some of the quirks as they were transforming to another platform. But I felt that it was very valuable to them. And also we give them mental health first aid training, which is 8 hours worth of training on mental health. So that we're getting the feedback that was very useful to cohort 1. And then we also offer occupational Spanish, which is a very popular course that we're offering some of our scholars. We only have, I think, 10 to 12 seats available for each session. So we have 3 sessions through the year. So it's very popular and the students really enjoy that. Also, some of our scholars are becoming AHEC ambassadors, as though they're working closely with the AHEC Center, and they go out with the AHEC Center pre-pandemic to talk about AHEC and some of the programs and services that we offer. So, and they also are ambassadors on campus. So that gives them a little bit of leadership experience. Finally, I'd like to point out that one of the key things that we do is that we establish satisfactory progress standards. We take our curriculum and our syllabus and we benchmark. You should be here by December. You should have completed these 2 modules by February, and you should be here by May. And so that when we see that the scholars are not on, are falling behind, then the phone calls, the emails, and the texts go out. So that, I think, helps as well. We also have communication requirements. We like to hear from our scholars. Our course managers are very proactive in reaching out to the scholars. They have developed a process that if they don't hear from the scholar after 3 communications in 1 month, they will drop the scholar. So at the beginning of the year, the scholars are made aware of these rules that you have to be in communication with your course manager. Next slide. So I just summarized our lessons learned, that retention starts with a strong recruitment and selection process. Develop your curriculum that's appealing and provides them with resources, skills that they can take into the workplace. Intervene early with struggling scholars. Use your AHEC Scholar Analytics to start to determine where, if you have high levels of attrition, when is it happening, where, and who is attritioning. Offer a stipend if possible. Provide professional development opportunities for your scholars, and then establish some expectation of making satisfactory progress through the curriculum. Next slide. We have, and I cannot emphasize as much, that we have 9 amazing AHEC scholars course managers. These are 9 individuals that are committed, passionate about their work, passionate about the scholar program. They're very creative, very innovative. They make it work. They are amazing. Liren and Keith, Jody, Victor, Joan, Jennifer, Bianca, Kirsten, and Erica. They're just amazing people. None of this would happen in Florida. We would not have the success that we have had experienced if it wasn't for these course managers, and hats off to them. They're amazing. And that's my spiel.
Thank you. Let me just stop sharing real quick here. Let me just take one question before we let Carlos present here. So do we have a question from anybody for Debbie?
I saw a raised hand, but I'm not sure where it was.
I see some applause, which is excellent. Thank you so much. That was outstanding. Many lessons learned there. Okay, so let me go back to sharing here so I get Carlos's slides up. Okay, take it away.
Hi. Well, I've already introduced myself, but just one more time. Carlos Marin. I'm Assistant Dean in the College of Medicine at the University of Kentucky and our Program Director for the 4 East AHEC offices. I kind of wish I'd have placed a map on this to give you a better description of how we're arranged here after seeing Debbie's presentation. We were asked to look at some of our challenges in recruitment and retention. But to do that, I think I want to give you a little bit of background about what the AHEC program in the state of Kentucky looks like. We have 2 central offices, University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville. If you follow basketball very closely, that's a pretty tough combination there. But you know, there was a joke for years about the blue side of the state and the red side of the state. But we work very closely with U of L and their 4 centers, and the 4 East AHEC centers are very collaborative in a number of programs, not just the scholars, but a number of initiatives that we do. Student placements, couldn't do it without the 8 regional centers working together. The University of Louisville actually is the holder of the model state or the federal grant, and we subcontract with U of L. We have 8 centers, as I said, 4 in Eastern Kentucky, Covington, North Central AHEC, St. Clair Regional Medical Centers in Northeast AHEC in Moorhead, Kentucky, Mount Vernon, Kentucky at Rockcastle, Hazard in Southeast, and then the 4 in the West are purchased in Murray, Kentucky, the West in Madisonville, Kentucky, the Northwest in Louisville, and South Central in Bowling Green. So we've got a good part of the state covered. Actually, every county is accounted for by a regional center. But what I want to do today is I want to be cautious in this and that. We're going to talk about something that has been our challenge in recruitment and retention. As an overall state, I think we've done well as a state program, but I wanted us to focus on what some of our challenges were and then give us time to have the dialogue at the end of the discussions for both Debbie and myself and Eric. So let's go to the next slide, Eric, please. You know, our challenge, like Debbie mentioned, was recruitment and retention. Whose role was it to address the challenge? Well, you know, some of the centers felt like it should have been theirs. It should have been ours. There was a lot of discussion on how we should do, how this ownership should play out. And it was not a difficult discussion. It was just a lot of questions that were asked that we had a hard time answering as central offices. You know, when we saw our first year numbers, we were extremely concerned with our retention, our recruitment strategies, you know, and our overall desire just to create a successful AHEC Scholars Program. What was that going to look like? How do you measure that? And then some of, you know, we looked at what works. We've looked at what's gone back, and I think we've developed a pretty good program. So let's go to the next slide, Eric. The first years, as we've all struggled with, was identifying the academic programs. We have centers that are located, 2 that are located at community colleges, 2 that are located at regional universities, 1 that is at an FQHC, and then 3 that are housed at regional hospitals. Proximity to health professions programs for a few of those centers was a bit challenging. For others, there was a relation with some of the educational programs in their region was strong, but this was a new approach to them. Primarily, we've done different community engagements and pipeline initiatives. Defining the recruitment strategy. Initially, we had, as a state, we're asked to recruit 115 scholars. Each regional Center was charged with recruiting 15, but there was no strategy for recruitment. In other words, we said, get your 15, and then we'll take it from there. Initially, there was a focus on the numbers, and I'm just going to be very honest about it. That was our goal. We had to, we were more concerned about the 115, and I mean that was our direction. We didn't have a clear goal or defined target group. We had the HERS objectives. We knew what the federal grant required, but I think we needed to work on developing those objectives to meet those goals, and that took us some time. We were asking individuals for curriculum development, and this is not meant as a criticism of our regional centers, because as like Debbie said, we have some outstanding coordinators and center directors, but we were asking non-academic individuals to develop a curriculum program for scholars that would be, or programs that would be involving from an associate's degree in nursing to medical students. So how do you develop a curriculum that can be shared across those that range of students, and not have an educational background or curriculum? So that took us some time to do. And then what was the incentive? I mean, Debbie's mentioned stipends. I saw a lot of nods. Others of our regional centers decided instead of the stipend, they would provide academic enrichment, pay for the NCLEX if they're a nursing program, pay for the MCAT prep courses if they completed the programs and things like that. To be quite honest, I think those are the ones that we've had the most success with on our scholars, is those that we've paid for the boards or the professional development or educational versus the direct stipends. We have 2 centers that do not provide a stipend at all. Let me go down here my notes and make sure. And then if you want to go to the next slide, Eric, I think that's where we are. So the first thing we needed to look at is we needed to streamline our selection process. We were too broad, and there was no defined target area that we were trying to get. We still wanted the regional centers to maintain that autonomy and continue to grow their scholars, but we also needed to look at how we were recruiting scholars. And I'll give you an example, and this is not to pick on any particular center, but one of our centers had, instead of 15, they actually had 24 AHEC scholars. 21 were accepted into the program, oh, I lost the presentation there. Of the 21 that were accepted, none of them completed the first year, and actually all but one, I believe, dropped out of the program that they were enrolled in. And so what had happened in that line, in that particular case, is that we had recruited students that were already in academic jeopardy, if you will, but we didn't realize that until they were already in the program. And so we tried to continue to work with these students, but they were, in this particular program, a lot of those students were non-traditional. And so that was very disheartening to that center, to have 24 scholars, and then in your first year, you have almost all of them drop out of your program. We started looking at improving the recruitment strategy. So selecting programs that we had long relationships, that had health professions programs, from nursing, which was a huge element of our initial cohorts, to medical schools. We're fortunate and blessed to have a number of, University of Louisville College of Medicine, University of Kentucky has 4 regional campuses now, and Pikeville, the University of Pikeville College of Medicine. So we were able to recruit into the medical field, but we also kept those positions that were associate degree or bachelor's degree. We, like Florida, shied away from the certification programs. Initially, there was a lot of interest in that, but identifying students for those was a little bit challenging over a 2-year cohort. So we've gone with the associate degree, bachelor's, or higher. We identified statewide initiatives or goals. We started working with the Google Doc websites, something that we could share our information with all of our centers where they could come and deposit, they could come and view, they could pull down information. For instance, we had the regional centers develop our presentation on interprofessional health, interprofessional education. Well, we're fortunate at the university to have a Center for Interprofessional Health Education who helped develop and has worked with our regional centers on IPE, cultural competency, diversity and inclusivity, as well as health equity are some of the components that we've started to share. For some of our students, this is the first time that they've been involved in those discussions. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, if you will, to get feedback on some of those. But right now, it looks like it's all coming together very well. The curriculum development was a huge hurdle initially for us. And now we have classrooms that all 8 regional centers have developed, making it accessible to all of the AHEC scholars. When you think of the pandemic that we've just gone through and our lack of access to some of our students, I feel that we were able to maintain a good relationship with our AHEC scholars. However, when you lose that face-to-face, we do lose some of our participants. Eric, if you go on to the next slide, last one. So one of the things that we did, I should have relabeled this workable challenges. I caught that earlier this morning. Our selection committee implemented more stringent requirements to participate in the AHEC scholars. We got away from the numbers. We need a body. We started looking at identifying, making the application process something that could be measured, evaluated. We developed a scoring matrix that can be used by all of our centers. The centers still function independently as far as the scholars go and the programs I work with, but we now have a central document that we can work from and review. Again, as mentioned earlier, developed events that can be shared statewide, inclusive of all of our AHEC Scholars events. One of our most popular programs is movie night, where they'll select a different topic for the scholars, bring it in that evening, share, and then have a discussion afterwards. And then one of the things that I'm most proud of is we moved from a region specific to a true statewide initiative. Initially, we were very focused on within our own regions. And to be quite frank, we were almost focused on an East and West performance. It took us a year or so to get past that, where we could actually go to a statewide initiative. And key for us is identifying the academic programs that have a commitment to our mission of the AHEC Scholars Program. That one is what I think has helped us improve our retention. Now, are we at 98%? No. Our first cohort, we had a 46% retention, and those, we had to go back and have some hard conversations with ourselves. So Eric, if we could go to the next slide, please. I was talking about those conversations we had to have meetings. What worked? What didn't work? Why was it not working? What were some of the programs and materials that needed to be changed? How was our curriculum developed? How did it look? The questions for myself and U of L is, did we as our central offices provide the regional centers enough information and guidance to help this project move forward, or move forward in a more positive outcome measurement? One of the things that I have always been concerned about with our centers is, we identify AHEC scholars and through the application process, and we sell it, we recruit it, we promote it. But, are we targeting students that we're really needing to address? Are we targeting students that have need, that would benefit from this program the most, or are we targeting students that we know are going to be successful, going to complete the program, and thereby our numbers are going to look much better? And so from that aspect, we've had to do a fine balance. You know, for instance, one of our programs recruits from a medical school that has a 98% completion rate. You know, they're going to complete the program. So what have we really gained and garnered from that versus those students that have could benefit more from the type of experience, the curricular development, the clinical exposure that we can provide through the AHEC Scholars? You know, I feel that we've developed well. Like I said, we had a 46% retention in the first 2-year cohort, and the last cohort we're at 76%. You know, and what we've done is we don't have as high a number. We're not at the 115 yet, but we've been able to identify students that have a buy-in into the program, if you will. And that's where I'm at right now. So I'd love to hear from you guys to see what challenges you've had. Any suggestions that we could take back to our regional centers would be greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you for your time. I do want to recognize the 8 regional center directors and the health care coordinators who direct the Kentucky AHEC Scholars Program. They are, as Debbie mentioned, they're an amazing group of individuals that really spend countless hours of working with our scholars. And so when we show numbers, they kind of take it to heart, you know, like, okay, I haven't done, you know, where did I not do my role? But I think they've done an outstanding job, and I think this program will just continue to grow. I also do want to recognize the Southeast Learning Collaborative. For us, that has been a great resource just to have state offices meet bi-weekly to just chat about our scholars, or, you know, other topics that we've had issues with. So, and thank you all for your time this afternoon, and I hope information I've shared has been beneficial.
Has anybody experienced similar challenges to retention, and what have you done to overcome some of those?
So this is Pat in Pennsylvania, and I would say, yes, we've experienced challenges with retention. We've experienced extreme challenges with recruitment as well. And we have tried to look at data. We've, you know, revamped modules when it made sense to do so. We've always started with a statewide approach, you know, and we're still encountering all of these challenges. So I don't have any words of wisdom. I'm just saying that we've been there and we're still there.
Hi, this is Stacy from WAMI AHEC. I think we're the only AHEC that's actually 2 states, Washington and Idaho. Our biggest problem was the first 2 years was we had an online asynchronous format for one of the centers ran that, and we found that the asynchronous format for us, and I know a lot of AHECs have made it work, but but we found that it just didn't work because there was just not enough engagement. So we obviously, because of COVID, we've had to have Zoom, everything Zoom now. But everything is synchronous in terms of the courses. And that center is still struggling because in their area, they don't have a lot of different professions in those local colleges. So where they're located, they're up by the Canadian border. So we are considering doing a synchronous online course out of that center next year. And I think that will do a lot better because the people who are up there will find it more convenient, but they will also, but students who are not from the immediate area could join that cohort and would be probably would be better retained because it's synchronous and there's more engagement. So we also found that we weren't, we were very siloed also, not like a state, like the at first. And then as soon as COVID happened, we started doing what we called Whammy AHEC United meetings, where we invited students from both states to attend. And as a result of that, there's been a lot more crossover where centers from Idaho will invite Washington students, and Washington centers will invite Idaho students to attend events.
And if I may add real quick, Eric, all of our AHEC Scholars programs in Kentucky are run at the regional centers. We do not run programs from our central office at UK or the University of Louisville. So we've put out as much resources as we can into the regional centers to coordinate these efforts. Hindsight, I would have liked to have managed that more. And that's not to say we won't move forward, but we have 6 health colleges on campus here at the University of Kentucky. I think from my perspective, we missed an opportunity for this campus, personally. And so I think that's one of those things I think we need to address. But all of our programs are run at the regional level, not at the central offices.
Yes, I hear you. And because we're at the University of Washington, we felt we had to have a cohort out of the program office. And thank God we did, because it's a very big university. And so when we couldn't get the numbers from our regional centers the first year, the program office made up for it because we had a much bigger cohort.
Elizabeth from Missouri, you had a comment there in the chat. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure, I can. So in Missouri, our didactics were centrally developed by the program office where I work and made available to all of the 7. Experiential activities are handled more on a regional level. We do some statewide with COVID, as that allowed last year. We did a lot of virtual stuff. But one of our main issues is that the students say that either the program takes too much time, or they cite that for the reason for withdrawing. We've made it as flexible as we possibly can, and we can't change the number of hours HRSA requires for the program. I just didn't know if anyone else was running into this being a common thing their students say if they no longer want to do the program, or if they had any suggestions on ways to work with that, because this is our 3rd year, and I'm pretty sure this is the most common reason we have when students with.
Elizabeth, what is your mix of content? I know with our curriculum, we have video, we have readings, we have we have case studies. So we try to keep it varied because sometimes some of them are just PowerPoints that they need to read through. So we try to keep it varied with them so that it's not all reading.
So we use Canvas, actually. We have some courses in Canvas, and it includes articles, videos, external modules like IHI and the University of Colorado. We try to get a little bit of statewide participation through like discussion boards and some reflections. We also offer a chunk of time which we allow students to do like elective didactic hours. So we have a list of books if they want to read a book, a movie if they want to read a movie, and then talk about it with some of their peers, other articles, other videos that they can choose, lectures that we plan across the state that they can join if they have the right time, if they have the time, or they can watch later recorded. So we have tapped into a wide variety of didactic options, and we use all of those throughout the course.
One of the things that we've done in Florida is that we have a standard curriculum that all the centers use, and that consistency helps, keeps the program standard across the state, that everybody's getting the same challenges there to go through. Another thing that I wanted to chime back in with Carlos, one of the things that our centers did is they started, and when the program first started, they met with the academic departments, they met with the deans first, and they got their buy-in and got faculty buy-in first before they started the recruitment process and having lunch and learn sessions with the students. That was critical because that saved us a lot of time of recruiting students that didn't realize that they were going to be too busy to do the scholar program. Because we met with our PA program here at the University of Florida, and she says, "Oh, this sounds fantastic. This is great." She says, "But my students are going to be too busy." So that eliminated a whole group of students that we probably would have recruited. They said, "Great, we want to try this," and would have had to drop out. So I think having that close relationship with the academic departments and getting their buy-in as well. Our greatest recruiting tool is our scholars, that they tell their peers about the scholar program. "Hey, you need to do this." So then, once we get the students buy-in, I think they're more likely to stay in the program because it was recommended either by their faculty member. We've had that occasion. So that strong recommendation from faculty, and when they make the announcement in their classes that, "Hey, the scholar application cycle is open, I recommend that you all apply." And I think that helps as well with getting the top students, the students that are really committed to working in this area. But I think, making that contact with the deans and just getting their buy-in or finding out that my students are too busy to do this.
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, and to comment on the requirements, we do a survey for the people who actually don't apply to the scholars. So it's an interesting survey. It's like, "Are you an AHEC scholar?" And then like, "Thank you, you're done." "Are you an AHEC scholar?" "No." And then we survey their opinions on why they're not. And the two leading reasons why people don't apply to be an AHEC scholar in Oregon, one is they didn't hear about it, which that's something we can work on. And then the other part is that, they felt that the program had too many requirements, which is tough. You want to make sure that you recruit people who know what they're getting into so that they complete it, but also not scare them off with 80 hours of didactics over 2 years. And so I don't know how to combat that other than making them more rewarding, easier to complete, and some of the incentives that both Carlos and Debbie talked about are also fantastic. Well, with that, it's 11 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. I try to start and end on time. Thank you both, Carlos and Debbie, for sharing. Those are fantastic. I think there are lots of takeaway points from both of those. And if you can click that link in the chat to fill out that post-session survey, it'll allow us to help put on additional content for everybody. And with that, we'll say goodbye. Thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate the interaction and the information.
Yeehaw!